Hello and welcome back to History of Western Music. This is the second part of our Renaissance period lesson. And today we're going to talk about some composers, Josquin de Prez and Giovanni Palestrina, two of the leading composers from the Renaissance period. As always, this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, can be found on our Google Classroom. If you wish to take a look at the slides and go through it at your own pace, you are more than welcome to. As well, please don't forget to answer the discussion question related to this video. Let's begin. So we are still talking about essentially this whole time period, 200 years, from 1400 to 1600 of the Common Era, CE. Lots has happened, as you can tell, in these 200 years. There's some wars, there's some conflicts, some very famous pieces of artwork were created, and some quite a number of historical events took place. Now remember, Renaissance is a fancy French term for rebirth. It simply means rebirth. And the aim of the Renaissance was to revive learning, ideals, and values of the ancient Greeks and Romans and bring them back to life. Because the Europeans at this time, for pretty much these 200 years, believed in the values and what society looked like for the ancient Greeks and Romans. And they wanted to bring that back. But at the same time, they wanted to introduce new technologies, right? There are different war technologies introduced here, such as the cannon. As well, we're also looking at musical technologies in terms of instruments and designing of instruments at this time. So music developed quite a bit in these 200 years. This is just a refresher. New genres emerged and old genres were transformed and evolved. So we have new international styles emerge because we have people from all over Europe coming together and working in one place. We have new rules for music theory. Music was printed and available to the wider public for the first time. And many amateurs were able to play music outside of the church and on their own. But within the church, new religious music came about as well. And the introduction of instruments and accompaniment to these old school Gregorian chants was introduced into the church as well. The three major composers of the Renaissance, we have Josquin de Prez, Giovanni Palestrina, and another Italian, Giovanni Gabrielli. Now, we're not going to talk about Gabrielli today, but we're going to talk about de Prez and Palestrina. To begin, we have Josquin de Prez. We're unsure of when he was born, but we think it's in the mid-1450s, and he died August 27th of 1521. He's originally from the Netherlands, but he did spend a considerable amount of time in France. He is the most famous European composer between Dufay and Palestrina, and is usually considered to be the central figure of the Franco-Flemish school of music. So the school of music between the Netherlands and France. He is the first master of the high Renaissance style of polyphonic vocal music. And remember, polyphonic means many sounds. Polyphonic, or many voices. During the 16th century, so the 1500s, de Prez gradually acquired the reputation as the greatest composer of his age and of the time, based on his technique and expression, which was universally imitated and admired for a few centuries after he died, actually. Now, he was so admired that there are many anonymous compositions that were attributed to him by copyists, people who were copying music from old manuscript paper to new styles of manuscript and new styles of notation. And this was done to simply increase sales. It's much better to sell a piece of music with de Prez's name on it rather than an anonymous name. Now, that being said, many of his songs were actually discovered by scholars not to have been written by him. They are of a different style, but still, there are many that were actually written to him. 370 to be exact. his reputation actually endured for quite some time, right up into the Baroque era, which will be the next era that we talk about. His biography, what we know about him is pretty dark. We don't know a lot about him and who he really was outside of what we can read in his music. The painting to your left is actually a modern interpretation of what Desprez would have looked like, what we think he would have looked like. His reputation was illustrious, and a gentleman by the name of Heinrich Glarian, he wrote in 1547 that Desprez was not only a magnificant virtuosos, which is Latin for basically a show-off, but he was also capable of being a mocker, that he could copy music, and that he was very good at listening to something that somebody was playing and writing it down. He was a mocker. Now, the music of Desprez is pretty awesome. He likely learned his craft in his home region in the north, both in the Netherlands and with significant training in France, but he ended his career in Milan and Rome. He wrote both sacred and secular music, so music for the church and not for the church, in all different forms. We get masses, which are pieces and performances played at specific church or sacred masses, like Christmas time. We get motets, we get chansons, we get frottos. He was praised for his supreme melodic gift. He could write a melody like no other person could at this time. He could hum a tune, write it down, and the melody, he could write a whole piece of music with just 5 notes. But you would never know it having just listened to it. He had varied writing styles. He had a very powerful influence on the following generation. As we talked about, the Baroque generation was a big, a massive era where he had some influence. His music was full of humanism. Remember, humanism at this time in the Renaissance, it was all about expressing the humanity, the person, the being, what we are as human beings, and how we as human beings are harmonious, how everything works together. And his music expressed that. It was very full of harmony and very nice, serene, flowing melodies. He created over 100 motets, 17 masses, many French chansons, Italian secular songs, and a lot of free-handed music that could very well have been attributed to him, but we don't know for sure. The one song that we're going to take a listen to here is called Ave Maria Virgo Serena by Desprez. Now, remember, everything is in the Latin language. And so Ave Maria Virgo Serena or Serena translates to Hail Mary, Gentle Virgin. It's talking about the Virgin Mary. It was composed, we think, in the 1480s. It is for 4 different voices, a cappella, so no instrumentation. It is in Latin. There is a rhyme scheme. Okay, it follows a specific text, which is the poetry based on the Virgin Mary, with the same title, Ave Maria Virgo Serena. The voice combinations highlight different aspects in the song itself. So there's frequent changes in voice groupings. There's equality and interdependence of voices. There's a full ensemble. The full ensemble, ends the phrases. And you'll see there's a couple different phrases in this piece. And the final 2 lines reflect that idea of humanism, that we are only human. O Mother of God, please remember me. Let's take a listen to Ave Maria Virgo Serena. Okay, so we just listened to half of that song. But I will be posting both of these songs, the two songs that we're going to listen to, on our Google Classroom when this video posts. So please have a listen to the entirety of the songs. They're really, really good, and this one especially by Prez. And if you wish, I've also provided you with the text. So as you listen along, please listen for the text. And remember, it is all in Latin, but there is a translation. Okay, and what is happening musically can be found on the very far right. Ave Maria, gratia plena Dominus tecum, Virgo serena. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you, gentle Virgin. All right, let's keep moving. Now we get into this guy, very long name, Giovanni Palestrina da Palestrina. Giovanni Palestrina from Palestrina. Okay, he was born in 1525 or 26, and he died in 1594. He was a premier Italian composer of church music in the 16th century, so the 1500s, and he was considered the prince of music. He was born in a small town near Rome called Palestrina. That's why in his name you see Giovanni Palestrina da, which means of, Palestrina. Giovanni Palestrina of Palestrina. And we just consider him, his name, Palestrina. He was a choir boy to begin with, and his musical education took place in Rome itself. Which is pretty interesting because in 1555, so he was about 30 years old or so, he sang in the Sistine Chapel for the Pope at the time in Vatican City, which is a pretty phenomenal feat for any musician of this time. It was a very small choir, and Palestrina was that good. For 40 years, he sang in Rome and composed all over the place. In Julian Chapel at St. Peter's Basilica, St. Peter's Basilica for the Pope. He spent some time, 15 years or so. He spent another 15 years at St. John Lateran Church, as well about 10 years or so at the Santa Maria Maggiore, which is another church. Now, Palestrina commissioned many different types of music, especially he was commissioned by the Pope, many different popes, but the main one is this Pope Julius III, who asked him to rewrite the official and revise the official chant books of the Roman Catholic Church of the time. And so he did in 1614, and he published it using manuscript paper. As you can see here, this is one of them, one of the works that he revised, okay, for Pope Julius III. You can see here the title, Johannes Petri, so John, right, Pope Johannes, right, Julius, okay, and it is by him. It's the Missarum Liber Primus, the first Mass book. And this book was written for the Christmas Mass, okay, by Palestrina himself. It was revised by him. Okay, he had many, many different works, 104 Masses, over 300 motets, 35 Magnificats, okay, these big ensemble type pieces. And his music actually developed into a specific style called Palestrina style, which was the standard for later centuries of polyphonic, which means many voices or many sounds in the church. And so his music was really truly based in the church. So his style, right? We get this legend of Marsalis Mass, which saved the polyphony. And so Pope Marsalis, he was a really good pope, but music at the time of Pope Marsalis was kind of declining. especially in the church. And so there's this legend that Palestrina's mass music, which was written in polyphony, which is many, many sounds, many voices, his mass for that specific pope was told in legend to reinvigorate music in the church at this time. It is the first style in history of Western music to be consciously preserved and imitated. It has been preserved up until now. We can see in the manuscripts, if you go to the Vatican museums, you can actually see Palestrina's music that has been preserved. And it was preserved throughout time. And so centuries after the death of Palestrina, you can see that musicians and copyists kept recopying his music to play throughout time. His masses had a variety of techniques, including free composition, where he would simply write notes almost on the spot. Or musicians would be given specific notes that they could play, and they would then improvise or freely compose the music as they played or as they sung. His phrases were very long and shaped very, very gracefully and beautifully, easily singable lines, because these were meant for church masses with hundreds and hundreds of people, especially in Vatican City at St. Peter's Basilica, that would fill that entire basilica with people that could sing these easily singable lines from Palestrina's Mass. And we're talking about the Pope Marcellus Mass. The voices move by step, so they move up and down by step. Okay, and there's very few repeated notes. And so the song that we're going to take a listen to is from the Pope Marcellus Mass. It is the Gloria, the opening part of the song. Okay, the Gloria part of these Mass songs are actually repeated over and over again, a couple times throughout the Mass celebration. The song itself is composed of an all-male a cappella choir, so no instrumentation. It is a cappella. With soprano, alto, 2 tenors, and 2 basses. Okay, the Gloria section of the piece is the hymn of praise. It is the celestial hymn to God. And as you can see in the background of this photo, this song definitely would have been sung in the Sistine Chapel itself. It is in monophonic form, so it's for single voice that opens up. Okay, it is through composed, which means that it is there are short musical ideas that exchange between the voices. So you get these short ideas that one person would sing, that another person would sing, and so on and so on. There are frequent changes in the density of voices, and the focus is on the clarity of words. And remember, it is in Latin, okay, and there's this full constant harmony throughout the entire piece. Here are the lyrics. Let's take a listen. All right. And that was the Palestrina part of, the Palestrina, the piece by Palestrina, Gloria from the Pope Marcellus Mass. Now, in all Glorias, they say this to open the Gloria: Gloria in excelsis Deo, et inter pax hominibus bonae voluntatis. Glory be to God on high, and on earth peace to men of good will. Voluntatis, goodwill. Now, here are some other Renaissance composers: Claudio Monteverdi, Guillaume Dufay, William Byrd from England, Carlo Gesualdo, Thomas Louis de Victoria from France, and Jacob Obrecht from Austria, Germany area. That's all we have for today, folks. Don't forget, answer the discussion question on our Google Classroom, and if you wish to listen to more of these pieces, please find them on our Google Classroom as MP4 files as well. Or MP3 files, excuse me. All right, thank you very much. Have an awesome week ahead. Adios for now.